Today I'm working with some furniture that has some missing pieces. This was a vanity and I'm turning it into two end tables. So this spot right here should have this in it, but it does not, because that used to be where the back of the vanity was. The other thing I'm going to do is duplicate some of these pieces because they are missing from the other table that goes with this set. So the first thing you have to do is put something that will act as a mold release agent on what you are putting your hot glue on, which is what we're going to make this mold out of. So I want to duplicate this. I am using Smooth On mold release spray, but you can also use Pam cooking oil spray. You can use 3-in-1 oil. And you can actually use like olive oil as well. But the best thing is either the mold release spray or the Pam cooking spray. So after you have that on there, we're basically going to use the hot glue to make a cast of this. And then once it is dry, we will put something in it to make a matching part. So I'm not going to do all this on camera because this is a mini hot glue gun that is slow. So we'll start it here and finish the rest of it off camera. And I'm going to duplicate this end piece right here. So I'll be back once I get all this hot glue on. Got all the hot glue on and it's been drying for about 30 minutes. So it is cooled off and dried. So I'm going to make some marks on here with a Sharpie just to let me know how much of this, well, there we go. Comes right off with mold release. Make a mark where I want this piece to end. And then on here, I want to make this piece about that deep in the mold. There we go. Always use a mold release agent. I've had this happen before. There's some spots in here that had little holes where I didn't get enough glue, so I'm just going to put it back on and put more glue on that. But I can show you this right now. So here is my little mold, my little piece. There are several things you can make your pieces out of. You can use Bondo, you can use wood filler, or you can use paper clay. This small one, I'm going to use Creative Paper Clay. And it literally is paper clay. Clay made of paper. So I'm going to use my mold release agent again, because if you don't, it will stick to your hot glue, and you don't want that. So put this inside. That, and I will let it dry. And I drew Sharpie circles around the places where it needed some glue. So there we go. Just take and fill in these spots and then come back. So I filled in all the holes with this, and this is when, depending on what kind of piece you are trying to replace, you're going to have to kind of figure out how to do it from here. I'm not going to put paper clay in this because there is so much volume here that the paper clay will crack, most likely. And if you use wood putty, this much volume of wood putty will also crack. And of course, remember this, you're not like exactly engineering a piece where you're going to pop it out of this mold and have it fit exactly. You're probably going to have to sand it and work with it and, you know, maybe fill some places in, but it will look pretty good when you're done. So with this piece, since I'm using Bondo and it's a little bit runny, I'm just going to go ahead and finish this mold with a piece of tape like this. And so that way I can just put the Bondo right inside of this and it will make the piece that I want. So I'll seal up these edges. You don't have to do this and you probably won't need to. It is just a kind of a special circumstances. Most of the time the pieces you're replacing are not this big. So I have my Bondo mixed up here, and I'm going to go ahead and fill out my little mold. Bondo, in case you don't know, Bondo is made for fixing cars. So it fills in dents from large to small, and so it doesn't shrink, and it dries hard as a rock, although it is sandable, because I will have to sand some of this, and when they use this to repair cars, they sand it smooth to make it as smooth as the finish on the rest of the car. So there we go. I'm gonna let this dry overnight. Let's see what happens with our other piece. This has been about 30 minutes. So I'm just going to hopefully not ruin it right now. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry. Okay, here we go. It's only been about an hour. I just ate some pizza and noticed this was pretty much dry. So let's take this out of the mold. So that's my line. It actually transferred onto the Bondo of where that needs to be sanded back to. Let's see if I can break some of this off, save myself some sanding. It's not this much kind of like dried Play-Doh. The more it dries, the more it is like cement. So I'm going to try to take enough off to make sanding easier without taking too much off so that I mess it up. Here we go, using things not for their intended purpose, something I seem to do a lot. But this might work. If it does, I'll be a happy camper because I won't have to sand all this off. And it did. All right, let's see how close we are. All right, that's as close as we're going to get it till it's all the way dry and we can actually take sandpaper to it, but it will, once I take off some of this and even it out, it will go pretty flush up against here. Now, like I said, none of this is rocket science. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm pretty sure you won't be able to tell this was done. So now I actually will let this dry overnight, and then I will come back and do some sanding. Okay, so here's my Bondo that dried overnight. I drilled a hole through the Bondo and a hole right there so that I can help to hold this piece on there. That is not required to do. You can attach your piece with glue, but this is a fairly large piece, so I thought I would rather be safe than sorry. If you are going to use a nail or a screw to attach it, you really should drill first, because the likelihood of cracking your pieces is pretty high if you don't drill a hole first. Now keep in mind, everything that I do is not necessarily something you have to do if you're replacing a piece of wood, but these are things you may come across. My piece that I made is a little bit too high, so you can either sand it, or if you have a really sharp file like this, told you I use stuff for not its intended purpose. This is a wood file. It's got a really sharp end, but it's great for shaping Bondo. Don't have this, you can just use sandpaper. So I want to get this matched up in height as much as possible to make it look good and look like it was there originally. So I have that sanded and filed as close as I can get it, and now it's time to fill this area in here. You can use wood putty, you can use Bondo, and I am going to use something, once again, not for its intended purpose, which is paper clay. The reason I'm going to use the paper clay is because I can work with this paper clay and make this so I will have to sand very little, if any, to make it look good. The properties of the paper clay make it excellent for this. Paper clay is made for making molds like we did earlier, but it's also good for this. Oh, and also I'm going to fill this in with the paper clay as well. I would normally use probably either wood putty or Bondo on this top part because it's so easy to come back and sand it because it's flat, but I just want to show you some other options besides that. So you can put your wood putty in here or your Bondo, and those things are a lot harder to get to look good when you put them on than this paper clay is. So I'm going to do this one with paper clay. So there we go. Now we will wait for it to dry. Alright, so let's take a look at the little piece here that we did. And this is a little one, like I said. The bigger ones are so much easier. So this seems to fit here pretty nicely. This is our little piece that we did. There was a little bit of stuff here that kind of came over the edge of the mold. I'm going to get rid of. But luckily, since this is an old piece, the imperfections will just blend in. So I'll put this back just like that. When you put your piece back on, use wood glue, and that seems to do really well. Small pieces or even, pieces this size are all good with wood glue. Just put the wood glue on and make sure that your piece is pressed down well into the wood glue. If you have to do something like if you want to make sure it's there, you can take a book or some kind of weighted thing, kind of stack some things up to make it press down on there. So there you go. That is the little piece. Let's get back to the big one. All right, so I let it dry and I put some paint on here, and then I put the paint on because I was kind of having a hard time seeing what was going on. So it's sanded very nicely on the top. You can see the tan is the paper clay, and the lighter colored stuff is the Bondo. So if you look at the rest of this, which is pretty imperfect, I think it might blend in okay. So I'm just going to take a screwdriver and try to straighten these parts out a little bit. And down there. Do a little bit of that, and then I'm going to paint it again and come back and take a look at it. So this is my end result for the Bondo on this piece. There are some imperfections, but as you can see, this table is old and full of them. So I'm not going to worry about like that little piece right there that just looks like a dent, because this piece is covered with little problems. So there you go. Here's what it looks like on top. That's where I filled that in. So there you go. How to replace missing pieces on furniture with Bondo and paper clay. Thanks for watching. Please check back often. I put up new videos all the time, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.